everyone knows by now, last night Israel chose to strike against Iran, and there were several waves of Israeli planes that went out and other things that perhaps we haven't even received the full picture. There may have been all kinds of activities that really have not been reported in the press. But what we do know is that Israel chose to strike military bases. And I don't know if you remember, I guess it was about a week ago or 10 days ago, we were discussing this and also praying for the wisdom for the Israeli leaders. And it was said that there are basically three options that were before them. This must have been 2 weeks ago at least, that they had three options. And the biggest, of course, were to go after the nuclear facilities. The possibility that they would just use this window before the American elections. Well, you know, it's unclear who's going to be in charge, who is in charge right now. The Israelis might see that as an opportunity, a historic opportunity to strike a blow against the nuclear facilities. Of course, that would be all-out war. And the result of that would be all-out war. The second possibility was to strike the oil facilities and to further cripple the economy of Iran. The fallout from that would be that it would hit the world economy immediately, and oil prices would rise. Prices all over the world would rise. It would be a major blow to the economy of the world. And the third option was to hit their military, which was seen as more as a symbolic attack, an attack that would put the ball back in the Iranians' court, and they could shrug it off as a tit for tat. Okay, we tried to strike you, you struck back at our military capabilities, and we will come up with a response at some indeterminate time in the future, or they could strike back. So last night, what we know is that Israel chose the third option. Okay, the least flammable one, the one with the least amount of worldwide fallout. You might say the most reasoned and the most calculated response. And I think, as a background, it's good to remember that the Israeli leadership is showing itself consistently to be one of quiet resolve, which actually is a good thing in times of war. You want men and women at the very top to be making decisions that are reasoned out, calculated, and decisions that our country is capable of. One example of this is that Israel waited a full 11 months to strike back at Hezbollah. Remember, right after October 7th, Hezbollah jumped in and started firing rockets into the north, and basically was evacuated all of the Israeli towns in the north. Tens of thousands of Israeli citizens are still dislocated and living in hotels and homes all over the country and not in their own homes in the north. Basically, it was a practical readjustment of the border without actually the Lebanese troops or Hezbollah coming in on the ground. They readjusted the border. And Israel tolerated this for almost a full year. They were allowed to, well, not allowed, but they fired over 9,000 missiles and rockets during those 11 months into Israel without a major response. And then as the military operation in Gaza moved into its final stage, which includes, of course, now the finding and the killing of Sinwar and most of the top Hezbollah leaders, as well as cornering them in Rafah, then Israel made the calculation it's time and it's necessary to strike back at Hezbollah. So 3 weeks ago, the Operation Northern Arrows began to push Hezbollah back, and that's been in full force for the last 3 weeks or a month. Casualties are mounting. Of course, you know the whole story, how Israel went before that. He had the pager operation and the assassination of Hania in Tehran and other targeted strikes that decimated the top leadership of Hezbollah. And then the Israeli troops went in on the ground and were taking over their facilities, the Hezbollah facilities in southern Lebanon, to make sure that their physical capabilities of threatening the north will be removed, whether they do it voluntarily or not. Okay, so that's in full swing. So it seems that the Israeli military and political leaders have decided not to add to that right now a major war with Iran. And to strike the military capabilities and to basically, you might say, hit the ball back to Iran. And now they have a dilemma. Okay, the Iranian regime has to decide whether to retaliate and risk an even stronger Israeli response, which Israel everyone knows, is capable of delivering, or to not respond and appear weak to their own people and to the region. So they're having to discuss this. They're making threats, of course, and at the same time saying that the damage was minimal. But what we've learned about the strikes last night were the many of the targets that were selected by the Israeli leadership were the air defense facilities that Iran has. And Iran, working with the Russians, has state-of-the-art air defense systems to defend against Air Force attacks. Okay, these, of course, using the right methods and the right munitions, are vulnerable to strikes, and the Israeli Air Force has proved itself to be really good at being able to take out air defense systems, and particularly Russian air defense systems, and that's what they did last night. Apparently, they took out at least 20 of these sites, and so it's not just an attack on some military buildings and maybe a factory that is manufacturing rockets and jet propulsion and the capabilities of making war. It would be the kind of attack that any nation would make prior to a major attack. The first thing you do is you take out the air defense systems. This is what the Americans did in Iraq, for example. You take out the air defense systems so that they don't know where your next strike is going to come, and their capability of fighting back against a next massive airstrike is vastly reduced. And that's what's happened to Iran today. It'll take them weeks, maybe months, to rebuild, even with Russian help, which they probably have. And so they're very vulnerable right now. So if they were to strike back, Israel would have a lot of support around the world to hit them back even harder. There's a lot of world pressure now that was on Israel about this attack. Now that pressure has shifted to the Iranians. And their countries are lining up, the United States, the UK, telling the Iranians, just stand down now. Okay, just consider it even. Okay, and stop. And these very same countries that really are upset about the idea of a wider war in the Middle East. Now they're trying to pressure Iran not to do anything. So this is really where we stand right now. In Israel, we're simply waiting to see what are the Iranians going to do. And I think this would be one topic for our prayer. Let's pray that they you might say, make right decisions, in the sense that right according to God's plan, and wrong decisions in terms of their desire to destroy Israel. All right. So we want them to make both right and wrong decisions. We trust in the sovereignty of the Lord, that He is in this process, and He's working through this process to bring about His goodwill. Just one other short note. I was up early this morning, and right at about 7 a.m., there was half a siren on Mount Carmel. I say half a siren because usually when the sirens go off, you see it on your app. We have a an app that's provided to us by the Homefront command, so we know what they want the citizens to know what's going on. But so it went off simultaneously as the local sirens that you hear, with your ears, and then it went off. So it wasn't a complete siren. Usually it goes on for a minute or so, and so that everyone, will be aware. It went on and then it went off. So I went immediately to another app that I have that maps where the sirens have gone off in Israel. And this one, within 30 seconds, if any siren goes off in Israel, it will be reported in this app. And the way that it reports is it puts a little red arrow over the region. So they've divided the entire country into hundreds of regions, and so every time a siren goes off, that region reports, and it's posted in this app. And all of northern Israel was completely covered with these little red dots, and I went, "Oh no, this is a massive retaliation." What we feared. That the Iranians were hit, and they've immediately retaliated with hundreds of rockets. I better we should, my wife and I, we better hit the shelter and get in the shelter as soon as possible. But then, just as I was about to get moving, another notice flashed on the app, and it said, "Earthquake." Right, earthquake. Now, this was a surprise because I didn't know that app was also capable of telling us when the earthquake sirens go off. All right, but apparently it is. They use the same app, and so it says earthquake, and I'm going, what in the world? I guess, I was kind of caught between being surprised and happy. I've never been happy about earthquakes, but it turns out that so about a minute later or 2 minutes later, there was a notification that it was a false alarm, that in fact it was an earthquake alarm, but it wasn't an earthquake. The IDF had blown up some munitions depot in southern Lebanon, and it was such an explosion that it triggered the earthquake alarms in northern Israel. So they probably, they're cleaning out these tunnels that they find that the Hezbollah and the bunkers that they've built that go right up to the border, they're cleaning them out. They're probably just piling up all the munitions that they found over the last week or two, and then they blew it up this morning at 7 a.m. and it triggered the earthquake alarms. We don't have many earthquakes in this region, but we do have them. So in the last 15 years, we've had 3 or 4 moderate earthquakes. But this region has a major earthquake just about every 100 years. Okay, the last one was in 1956, where a really big earthquake that devastates cities was in 1956, and the one before that I'm looking was in 1837. Okay, and there was another huge one in 1759. All right, they have the records that go back, and these are big earthquakes. Some of you know that from the Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4, where the prophecy of the return of the Lord, where it says that his foot will step down on the Mount of Olives, there it is prophesied there will be a major earthquake, and the Mount of Olives will be split. And so, well, we're not overdue for a major earthquake, but in the next 20 or 30 years, we should be getting ready and expecting one. So who knows how deep we're getting into the end times. Some of you know that in Matthew chapter 24, Yeshua predicted this. He said, "You'll have wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not troubled by these things. These things must come to pass. There will be wars. Nation will rise against nation. People against people. There'll be famines and earthquakes in various places, but these are just the beginning of birth pangs." And so these are the birth pangs of the end times. But let's pray for the for the Iranian decision that is probably being discussed or being made in Tehran. Now let's continue to pray for the Israeli leadership that they will make wise, courageous decisions, and that in both cases these leaders will be overshadowed by the Spirit of God, and God will exert His sovereignty through these affairs of state in which all of our lives are impacted.